defeat Putin. For God's sake, this man cannot remain in power.
We came, we saw, he died.
We both agree that Assad needs to go.
You know, fuck the EU.
Hello, everybody. We are online on every platform possible. So today we're going to have a nice conversation with Kevork Almassian from the channel Syria Analysis. He is a journalist independent journalist, Syrian journalist living in Germany. He's the host of almost daily show at Syrian Analysis channel. He has a journalistic website called Syriana-Analysis, and also running the two Twitter profiles, Kevork Almassian and Syrian Analysis. Every link on the description. So without further ado, Mr. Kevork, how are you doing, sir? Sabah al-Khair.
Sabah al-Nur. Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you very much for coming to the show. So I was thinking about having a conversation in the show today, more or less about how things were, about history of West Asia that we commonly know as Middle East, and a little bit of history about the Syrian conflict, and if we have some time, about Armenia. So I'll briefly introduce you, and not briefly like, the Putin when he introduces the history of Russia, but I would like to briefly introduce you why Syria is important for me personally. The conflict in Syria was a kind of mindset changer for me, because it was happening more or less on the time that I was moving out from Brazil to Switzerland. And at that period, it was very interesting because I was in Brazil, and then Syria was getting attacked by ISIS, and the United States were interfering, and then Russia came in and bombed ISIS, and so it was helping Syria. And as soon as I arrived in Switzerland, well, Russia was bombing Syria. Russia was simply bombing everything in Syria. And I was like, okay, that was not what I heard a week ago. That's very interesting.
Yes.
And at the same time, we had in Brazil, so there was a period of a lot of refugees coming out from Syria, and Brazil received some of them. And very interestingly, a couple of videos started to pop on the media of Brazilians being hostile to the Syrian refugees. And that's not very common for Brazilian people. We can be hostile to each other, but usually we are very nice to foreigners. We're curious about foreigners. So I would like to start this show learning a little bit of Middle Eastern history. How does it forms? All the cultures and civilizations that pass by there, a little bit of religion situation. Because what we learn in Brazil is that, Middle East has been always in war with each other. And right now I learned that it was not exactly like that. So could you please give me some light on these issues?
So it is a very big question, but it's a very good question, in my opinion, because why Syria is important. Syria, of course, is only formed, the recent Syria geographically, after 1945, 1948, when Syria gained its independence. But if we see the geography of Syria, what is called Levant, this was a very important piece of geography for a very, very long time. And eventually, many civilizations and many empires passed pass through Syria, and they wanted to conquer or occupy Syria. First, because it's a crossroad between Europe and West Asia, and also to North Africa, because the ring countries that I call Syria, Palestine, and Egypt, those are the countries that if you can pass through these countries, you have an access to different regions in West Asia, of course in North Africa and in the Sahara countries, and also the Mediterranean, right? And also the Red Sea. Those are very, very important geographies. That's why Syria as a civilization that started 7,000 years ago, we've seen that many, many empires and civilizations passed through Syria. Started with the Assyrians, the Akkadis, the Romans, the Greeks, the Muslim conquerors, the Tatars, the Mongols. Everybody came and had its own fingerprint over Syria, right? And therefore, Syria has become a melting pot for different civilizations and different cultures from all around the world. Because when these empires came, or these civilizations came, and when certain empire or civilization, let's say, crumbled or weakened, that doesn't mean that the people also left. So there are still people in Syria speak Aramaic, there are still people in Syria speak Assyrian, there are still people in Syria speak Armenian, Kurdish, Yazidi, Arabic, Hebrew, all sorts of languages and cultures, right? So this is why Syria is rich in civilization and culture, and this is the true embodiment of multiculturalism, not the multiculturalism that the so-called neoliberals try to market nowadays, because what they're trying to do, they're trying to engineer multiculturalism without, it's not a natural development, but rather enforced upon the people. And that's why you see instability or in their countries when it comes to social dynamics in these countries. So Syria was very important, and that's why after World War I, the Brits and the French, they came and colonized the region, and French took over Syria and Lebanon. Lebanon was part of Syria, but then divided it. They wanted to create a Christian state in Lebanon, and the Brits, they conquered the current Palestine, and they started importing the Jewish migrants who were persecuted in Europe, and there was a big influx of Jewish people from all around the world under the guise of the British Empire. And when the people in Palestine, before the British mandate, they were around 5% of Jewish people living in Palestine, and then the Brits brought them on like big influx of Jewish people from all around the world. And I am for receiving Jewish refugees from all around the world, those who were suffering from the real anti-Semitism and persecution by different people around the world or different governments around the world. But the Brits have converted this into a colonial and into an imperialist project. Instead of the Jewish people coming to Palestine as refugees and living side by side with the other people there, they wanted to turn this project into political one, and that's why there was a clash between the Zionist project and the other pan-Arabist countries. So Syria gained its independence in between 45 and 48. There were all these talks between the French to leave the country, and when France left the country, Syria didn't have its national army. So what happened is Syria formed its first national army in 48, 49. And in 48, there was already the war against Israel, right? And it was a defeat. Of course, Syria didn't have any tangible force to fight against Israel, and the Israelis were supported by the Brits and also different powers around the world. What happened in Syria is very important in 48 and 49 in this national army thing, because people need to know why later we have the rule of Hafez al-Assad and now Bashar al-Assad. Because in 48, when they formed the military, nobody wanted to join the military because nobody wants to go and fight now. It's not there was no forced conscription. So who is going to join the army? That was the question. So the government said, okay, I'm going to present some socialist measures now in the army. If you join the army, then you have a health care, you have a free education, you have this and that, you have deduction on the prices of your bread and fuel. So who would be the first to join the army, more the middle and below middle class people, right? And back then in the 48, the Syrian economy was mostly controlled by or dominated by the rich Sunni communities in Homs, in Aleppo, and in Damascus. So the rich people didn't join the army. Those who joined the army were the poorer people. Those were the Alevites, for example, from the mountains, and the Christians, the Jews, etc. So when you join the army is the most important sector in the country, in my opinion, right? And in a decade or two, the minorities in the army became probably on the senior level became the percentage is a little bit more than the Sunni people, although the Sunni people were if you check the population, they're 70% of the population. But in the higher ranks in the military, they didn't have much influence because they preferred to stay in the economic sector. So between 48 and 63 to 69, there were so many coups d'etats in Syria. I can't even count them now on my fingers, how many coups d'etats happened. The Americans, the Brits, the French, everybody was involved and couping one leader, replacing with another. It was a chaos, you know. And they used to call it a liberal democracy in Syria, but it's just a brand, because what was basically it was chaos. In 1 year, there used to be 2 coups. And how... Wow. And what type of democracy is that, you know? And the Americans removed one president and installed another because there was this Baghdad coalition. They wanted to create some sort of a NATO in the Middle East, and the Syrians refused it, so they couped the president. So this led into a climate in the country of instability up until 1970.
Okay, just a second, so I can put my mind on place. What years are? What is the timeline of this? 60s?
Between 1948 and 1970, there were all coups in Syria, coup after another, and one leader comes not even 1 year, and another leader replaces him. It was all instability in the country up until 1970s. But these coups that happened in the country has created a climate in the country that people want stability, you know. So when a strong man came to and did the last coup in 1970, headed by the defense minister back then, Hafez al-Assad, when he did the coup in Syria and he established what they call a regime, which is like he enforced the rule of law, he enforced the state institutions, and he built state institutions in the country, and he imposed a socialist system on the country. This led into relative stability. And between 1970 and 1980, Syria didn't witness any sort of instability up until between 1980 and 1982, when the Americans supported what is called the Muslim Brotherhood. And they did that because Syria refused to sign the peace accords with Israel when Egypt did in 1978. So the Americans started to support this Muslim Brotherhood jihadists in Syria, and they committed acts of terror until Hafez al-Assad again crushed this insurgency in the country. So Syria, if we go just one step back, in 1967 lost the Golan Heights against with Israel, because Israel said that there is an imminent threat coming from Syria and Egypt. So they waged what is called the preemptive strike. Of course, it is a big hoax, in my opinion. And they occupied the Syrian Golan Heights. They occupied all Palestine. They occupied the Sinai. In 1973, Syria tried to liberate these territories from the Israelis, and they waged a war with the Egyptians, and they couldn't manage to capture all of the Golan Heights. And when the Americans came in the region after so what happened after 1973 war, Anwar al-Sadat, the president of Egypt, he had a different plan in mind that he didn't share with the Syrians. He told the Syrians that he wants to go to war with the Syrians against Israel to liberate Sinai, and we liberate the Golan Heights. But in the middle of the war, the Egyptians stopped the advancement in the Sinai, and they told the Americans, I have an offer for you. We kick out the Soviet Union from Egypt. You come to the region, and we convert our country and our army into Americanized military. You come to North Africa and Middle East. You have now an access, but you have to convince Israel to give back the Sinai. And the Americans accepted. In few weeks, Anwar Sadat kicked out all the Soviet army, all the Soviet advisors, everything out of the country, and he brought the Americans to the region. And Hafez al-Assad, the Syrian president, considered that as a treason. So he didn't go along Anwar al-Sadat, who went to Jerusalem, and he gave a speech in the Knesset, and he said, I'm here to make peace with you. And Hafez al-Assad said that he's not going to sign on any sort of so-called peace treaty, because for him, Hafez al-Assad believed in a collective approach toward Israel and not an individual approach. Like each country is striking individual deals with Israel means that we are in a weaker position, not in a stronger position. We cannot impose our will on Israel. But the Egyptians striked this deal, and then the Jordanians strike this deal. So Syria stayed alone in this. And the Americans came, and it was Brzezinski offering Syria a deal, again, in 1978, when the Israelis signed a similar deal, and Syrians refused. So the Americans supported the Muslim Brotherhood here, this radical Islamists in Syria, to put pressure on Assad in order for him to sign a peace treaty with Israel. But what happened during this time, the civil war erupted in Lebanon. So the Syrians were very worried, because Lebanon is a very tiny country, and if the pro-Israeli forces in Lebanon become dominant in the country, then Israel will project its power inside Israel from Lebanon. So they went to Lebanon. And when Israel invaded Lebanon in 1982, they fought against the Israelis inside Lebanon. This was a brutal war between the Syrians and the Israelis. The Americans, the French, the Brits, everyone sent peacekeeping forces to Lebanon during this time, but it is attributed to Syria, and also it's attributed to Hezbollah, that they planned a big explosion in the port where the so-called peacekeeping forces were located, and around 400 soldiers from the Americans, the Brits, and the French died on site. So they all withdrew from Lebanon, and Lebanon stayed like it was under mandate of Syria. Syria took control of Lebanon after 1982 till the civil war was over in 1990. Syria was there. After 1990, I think Syria should have withdrawn from Lebanon. They should have managed to create a political system that recycles a policy that is in favor of Syria, instead of just staying there with its military and trying to force themselves. It was, in my opinion, a miscalculation from the Syrian side. And this has lasted till 2005. In 2005, the Syrians had to withdraw from Lebanon because there was an assassination for the former prime minister of Lebanon, which I believe that the Israelis did it. And this was the trigger that led to the withdrawal of the Syrian army from Lebanon. And they created a color revolution in Lebanon after the assassination called the Sidr Revolution. And the Syrians withdrew in 2005. And the reason why they wanted for the Syrians to withdraw, because the Israelis had a plan to invade Lebanon. And just 1 year after the Syrian withdrawal from Lebanon, Israel invaded Lebanon in 2006. And but the Syrians, they knew about these plans, and Syrian intelligence is not easy. They knew that Israel has a plans. So they just withdrew their soldiers from Lebanon, but they kept all their artillery, all their missiles, all their ammunition there. And they handed it over to Hezbollah. Everything they had, they gave it to Hezbollah. And in 2006, when Israel invaded Lebanon, Syrians again opened their all military warehouses to the Israelis, to the Hezbollahs. And the Hezbollahs used all sorts of sophisticated Cornet rockets, for example, against the Merkavas. And the Syrians were here worried that the Russians would be upset because those weapons were basically bought from Russia for the Syrian army, and they ended up in the hands of Hezbollah. But the Russians were very happy to see that their weapons are striking the Merkavas, because it was the great marketing for their weapons. They didn't. Yeah. It was the most free advertisement for their weapons.
That's good business.
Yeah, and the Hezbollahs managed to kick the Israelis again out, and this is, in my opinion, this was the moment the Americans and the Israelis, the French, everyone understood that the Assad the father and Assad the son are not going to back off from this conflict with Israel. They tried to persuade him politically, economically. They told him that Qatar can extend the gas pipelines through Syria and you make billions of dollars. Just forget about this Palestine conflict, and they were very stubborn. The Assads were very stubborn about these cases. So the last time...
So that's when the United States understood that Assad must go. Assad must go.
2006, this was the moment the Americans said Assad must go. But the French, Sarkozy, told the Americans, they said, calm down, let's try one last time. And give this mission to me. This was Sarkozy's mission. So what Sarkozy did, Sarkozy invited Assad in 2008 on the French National Day to Paris. And he gave Assad a red carpet. He rolled him a red carpet. He treated him like he's a big leader. And he gave Assad all the exposure. And he was on a stage with world leaders, everyone from all around the world, including Israel, right? So it was Ehud Olmert there. All this theater that they set up for Assad had one goal, that Olmert and Assad shake hands on this stage. And there is a video, guys, if you can go and check on YouTube later. Just type Assad, Olmert, cat and mouse, and see this report. It is on one of the Western reports. And basically what they were trying to do, the Qataris and the French, they were trying to persuade Assad to shake hands with Ehud Olmert. And Assad said no many, many times. They even pushed him physically with their arms to come close to Ehud Olmert, and Assad turned his back and he walked away. Because in Syria, they say if you shake hands with the Israelis, then you recognize the legitimacy of Israel. And they don't accept the legitimacy of Israel as a state. This has nothing to do with the Jewish people living there. They don't accept the legitimacy of this political entity called Israel, because they say that it's an occupation force, and these are the Brits who brought them and installed them here in the middle of West Asia. So this was the time when even the French realized that this is not going to work out. And there is a video of the former French foreign minister. He says that in 2009 and in 2009 or in 2010, so after 2 years of this conference, he was invited to Britain and he met with the foreign minister of the UK, and they told him that they're planning to coup Assad, and if he wants to be part of this project. And he said no, he doesn't want to be part of the project. And he explained this clearly on France 24, France 24, that the reason was Israel. Not because the Western governments had anything against Assad himself. It was just about Israel, because they wanted to end this conflict with Israel. And now they wanted to coup Assad because of Israel. So the CIA came in 2011, and they spent, if the CIA has $10 billion budget per year, they spent $1 billion per year on Syria every year. So 1/10 of the CIA budget was spent on Syria between 2011 and 2017, in 7 years. And this is only the CIA, because in parallel we had another program by the Pentagon. And imagine that they were even supporting conflicting parties, like so-called rebels supported by the Pentagon fighting against rebels supported by the CIA on Syrian soil, right?
Not only CIA, I mean, that's just the CIA budget. Then you have the open societies budget, Facebook, whatever. you can put on that. It's all that. It's interesting that you just mentioned 2011, and I just put one of my questions was about the 2011 start of the Civil War, and how is it connected to the Arab Spring? But please go on, then I come to this point.
My friend, I would just mention to you a few things that how they spent the money. First of all, the CIA had its covert operations in Syria. They spent $1 billion per year. In parallel, the Pentagon had training operations for what they called the rebels. This was in Turkey and in Jordan. In parallel, we had Qataris. Qataris spent tens of billions of dollars in Syria. The Saudis spent tens of billions of dollars in Syria. And Turkey was the hub that they brought all the jihadists from all around the world, and they opened the borders for them to come to Syria. So everyone played its role in this, right? And it was, in my opinion, it's the other day when I was interviewing Alistair Crook, former MI6, he said, it's a small miracle that Syria survived. And it's a miracle because imagine all these countries coming together against you. Nobody was able to to come and give tangible support to Syria except for the Russians, the Iranians, and Hezbollah. Only these three countries came and gave tangible support to Syria. And since you live in Italy, the current Prime Minister, right? Her name is Meloni. Yeah, Meloni, before she came to power, she said that if there is any presence for the Christians in Syria, that is thanks to Assad, to Russia, and to Hezbollah. This is what she said. And she's true, but they all say the truth when they are not in power. When they come to power, they just forget the truth. Anyways, so this is on the military level. On the logistical media activism level, I'm still young. I'm still 36 years old. But back then, I was 21, 22 years old. And my colleagues in the university, my colleagues in those who graduated from political science, those who worked in media, and they were all contacted. They were all contacted by different organizations. Those are the middlemen, of course, like NED, like USAID, like the Soros organizations. Those are all the middlemen. And I warned them that, guys, these people are going to use you like a lemon. They squeeze you and they throw you in the mill. However, all these colleagues that I had back then, they were very enthusiastic. They thought that they're doing something right. They're very naive, and they joined this so-called Arab Spring trend. And back then I was very suspicious because I know the experiences of Iraq and I know the experiences of Libya. I'm sorry, I'm not stupid to believe that the Americans want the best interests of the Syrian people, right? And what happened is, coincidentally, all these colleagues and friends that I have, they had the most expensive cameras, the most expensive laptops all of a sudden in their hands. And they are producing videos, they're producing images, posters for the quote unquote revolution. And then they escaped the country. They became refugees all around the world, and they get this refugee status. Like they go to the embassy of France, for example, in Beirut, and they get the refugee status from there. So they don't have to walk the Balkan countries and come to France and apply for asylum. No, they receive the refugee status from there. They go to France, they go to the United States. My colleagues who had half of my GPA, I had the highest GPA in the university, and my colleagues who had the half of my GPA, they got scholarships in the best universities around the world. They got red carpet treatment wherever they go. They're the geniuses of the geniuses, you know.
In the best universities. Wow.
Yeah.
They tell us is the best.
Yeah, and books been written about them, TV shows made after them. Their names became very famous. They received medals. They received prizes. The only thing that I received for my work is the appreciation of the people, and that's the gold for me. And that's the real appreciation. I don't need this gold and medal and the prizes of these imperialists who wanted to destroy my country. And I don't want them to write a book about me. And what I did is, in my opinion, broke many narratives that they were trying to spread about Syria. It's just a big balloon of lies, and you have the needle. You're just like destroying these balloons, and they cannot tolerate that, because they would say, if you're them, you would say, like, who the fuck is this guy sitting behind his laptop and he's destroying our lives, So they came after me. They tried to sanction me. Under Trump, the opposition sent my name to the Trump administration. They wanted to change the sanctions law to say that they want to include journalists and activists who are, quote, enabling the Syrian regime. So they wanted to, but this request was rejected by the Trump administration back then, to sanction journalists. This was one step too far, even for Trump, But those are.
Yeah. He didn't release Assange, so...
Yeah. I mean, look, those are the so-called democratic activists trying to sanction me for having a different opinion. And I'm a person that criticizing the Syrian government for oppressing these voices, although they have somehow a right to oppress these voices because they are paid mostly and they are infiltrators, right? Yeah. But I want for everyone to have the right to speak. This is in my ideal world, right? Like, I don't want anyone to be banned on X, whoever is that person. I don't want anyone to be banned on YouTube. Everybody has the right to say what they want, and let the people judge.
I go, if I may just post my opinion here about this subject. I am not in favor of unlimited opinion. Let's call it like that, okay? But of course, you're not posing any threat to anyone, because people like you, like this guy I told you before, Monarch. They are persecuted and sanctioned and removed from socials. Yet you have a trillion of hashtag NAFO guys around. And those guys are mostly, that's one of my fun games in Twitter, is just going on NAFO and denouncing them to Twitter. And every now and then one of them gets cut off. That's fun. But these guys just go around, posting the most absurd things. And I'm saying absurd, like, actually calling for murder, actually calling for genocide, in the words, not implicit. In the words, just go around and do whatever to these people. We don't care, And people like you, that you're a journalist. I'm not a journalist. I do this because I just got pissed off. But you're a journalist. You're a serious person. You're supposed to be informing people. And, well, you're also a human being. You can make mistakes, but you're doing your work properly. You're not just reposting narratives. You're going after stuff.
Yeah,
please.
My friend, when I started in 2017 on YouTube, I did it because I was pissed off, not because I wanted to become a podcaster. I just was like so pissed off with the lies, the blatant lies about my country, that I was like, enough is enough. I want to tell the people what's going on. But that was a deal breaker for whoever these people are, for the establishment. Call them whatever you want. And when they come after you and they smear you, and they commit this character assassination, you're done. Because if you live in Germany and the German press writes about you, that you're this and that, nobody wants to hire you anymore. You're not going to go to any school. You're not going to be accepted in any college. You are done. That's why the main consideration for anyone who wants to speak the truth has to establish something for himself or herself, something independent. If you're dependent, you're done. They will crush you. And they will also try to kill you if you continue doing that. And they don't really come and try to kill you directly. What they do is different. In my case, for example, when they smeared me, and they called me a fascist, they called me a neo-Nazi, they called me, like, I'm not even a right-wing. I don't even consider myself not even a conservative, right? In some aspects of my life, I'm a progressive person. But in some aspects of my life, I feel like conservative values fit more. I don't want to be right or left or center. I just see what is logical for me, right?
That's a logical person thinking.
Yeah, exactly. And no, they insist that you are somehow a far right conspiracy theorist, propagandist, right hand of Assad in Europe, etc., etc. All these things are written in German. And what did the Syrian opposition do? The second day, of course, they translate these articles, these videos to Arabic, and then hundreds of thousands of people watch these reportages, and then Al Jazeera comes and Al Jazeera copies this information and they add some salt and pepper on it, and they say, so who sent Almassian to Germany? Is it possible that Assad probably sent him? Who is he meeting in Germany? Who is giving him instructions, you know? And all these low IQ people, they would think that you are really a spy or something and you're receiving instructions. So they don't say you're a spy, but they give the impression that you are. And then what they do is they turn the anti-Assad street in Germany, which, believe me, they are a lot, because most of the refugees who came to Germany are indeed from Turkey. And those are pro-Erdoganists. And the pro-Erdoganists, when they see me in the street, they think that I am that person. Like I am wishing them harm, and I am a radical person, and I'm probably a spy. So the low IQ people, what they do, they don't know how to talk. Their language is violence, right? So they attack you. They attack you in the street, and then you all of a sudden you find yourself in the street surrounded by people. They want to fight you, they want to hit you, they have objects in their hands that I saw with my eyes that it was a knife, for example, one of the persons who attacked me. And then when he escapes, he says it was a mobile, it wasn't and everyone tries to cover up these stories. The press covers up the story. They say that I'm lying, that nothing like this happened. And the eyewitnesses disappear from the reports that been written about the case all of a sudden. Nobody saw anything. So it's a big, in my opinion, it's a way to destroy your life and push you to fear so that you stop doing what you do. But I survived, let's say, this destruction attempts. And I just, every day I improve my work. And this is just a fuel that I have to improve my work and convince more people. And I'm not harming anyone. I'm just saying what I think is true and false. And if they think that I'm spreading misinformation or disinformation, they have their platforms. They can say that I'm lying, prove me wrong, you know, but they don't do that.
Exactly. The thing is that they don't have to quote unquote prove you wrong. They just put up a video, you know, a react video to whatever you say and say, oh, this guy's stupid. And everybody say, yeah, this guy's stupid. Yeah. You know, you have very influential people being for sure paid to do that. We have some good examples in Brazil. I'm not going to name them because I can get in trouble with YouTube, but most of people that watch us here knows who I'm talking about.
Yeah. You know what's up? For example, what they can do is it's beyond. I myself, if I want to harm someone, I cannot come up with such ideas because first of all, I don't think of harming someone, and I just okay, this is your opinion. Okay, fuck you. You know, that's it. That's the maximum what I say. You know, mute him, block him. Enough. I don't want to harm anyone for having an opinion. But what they do is very dangerous. Like I gave a speech in Germany in 2016, and I said in the speech that Erdogan is using the refugees as a weapon against Europe, which means that Erdogan is weaponizing the refugees against Europe. And this is the evaluation of the German intelligence and the EU's assessment that Erdogan is weaponizing the refugees. He says that if you don't give me the $8.8 billion, I will open the borders for another million refugees. What does that mean? It's weaponizing the refugees, right? So what the reportage says about me, the German reportage that they made about me, so they keep, like I'm speaking and you hear me for 5-6 seconds, and then they cut my voice and they add a voiceover, and they say, and here Almassian described the refugees as as weapons, right? Like, it's not me who called them weapons. I said Erdogan is weaponizing the refugees. And then the Al Jazeera comes and they take that segment and they say, I called the refugees time bombs. I didn't even use that term, right? So everything turns into something different. And then you as much as you post the original video and tell the people I didn't say that, they just not going to believe you because they just don't agree with you politically. So whatever you say, you're a liar for them, you know? Yes. That's how they play.
One of the missions here in the channel, we try to bring as much diverse thinking as possible here, and from most part of the planet as we can reach. And we see very interesting things because we have, for example, in Brazil, you have some progressist people, and we're also talking with some conservative people, and sometimes we have a live and we talk about this and that, and then we see people saying, I don't like these people, and I know that this person that is saying that is from the progressives, and then I'm talking about the good things about the conservatives, but they simply do not understand that their goals are the same, you know. Yes. That, okay, one is more conservative, other is more. Who cares? The goal is the same, and people. We try to bring people together into thinking that okay, let's embrace what brings us together, and then we work out our differences. But first, let's embrace what brings us together. And it's hard to define. Myself, I'm 40. I'm about to turn 43 already. God damn it! And what I say here in the channel is always this: most of my life, and I would say most of everybody's life, we just spend doing what we have to do. Study, work, have fun, take care of family, take care of friends. We don't have to. We shouldn't need to have to be worried about geopolitics every day. But then when I turned 40, then happened Ukraine, and then I saw, look, my life. So I moved out of Brazil to get better life. No shame on that. And then people start to destroy my life here again. I say, okay, that's enough. Enough is enough. Yeah. I have to take care of my life and my family and everything, and I have to start doing that. But until then, as I mentioned, the Syria mindset that changed on my head. Yeah, it changed the mindset, but what did I do? Well, I just kept working and having fun and having my vacations. That's what I was supposed to do. Yeah. And it's hard to convince people, and I'm not talking about an average Joe or a person with very little, a low level of education. I'm talking about PhD people. I'm talking about. It's very hard to remove the damage that the media has done on the mind of the people on the last 30 years. I would say 30 years because it's the time more or less that I know myself as a person. But these people are very intelligent, logical people, engineers, PhD in physics. And you come to them and say, look, this doesn't make sense. It's extremely hard. It's extremely hard.
Welcome to the club, my friend. I realized this in 2012 and 2013 when I submitted my master dissertation, the graduation project, and my supervisor told me he doesn't want to put his signature on the dissertation because he doesn't like the outcome or the conclusions. This is my dissertation. He wants me to change it in his taste, And you know what he told me? This is a professor. He is a post-professor, post-PhD. He told me what's happening in Syria. He wants to summarize it to me. He wants to teach me about Syria. I said, please tell me what's happening in Syria. He said, Syria, for me, looks like it's a bottle of water that you close the bottle for 40 years. So the water inside will get muddy and muddy and muddy. So when you open the bottle, all this mud has to come out, the dirt has to come out. All these jihadists and all these fighters are just the mud for him. And when the mud is over, then the clean water will come again to the surface. And I look at him, and I was like, how the fuck I paid thousands of dollars for this university for this motherfucker to be my supervisor? This was in 2012, right? How is it possible that this guy is teaching me in the university? And I realized this many, many times. The most propagandized people that I met in politics are in academia. Because the educational system is so hijacked and it's so directed and engineered in one way that you become like this horse, like this. You don't see your right or left. You're detached from the street. You don't speak with the people. You are a prisoner of your books. I'm not generalizing about them. I said the most propagandized people that I met were in academia. There are many good people still, or critical thinkers, but I met with people that when they say they have a PhD in international relations, in geopolitics, in something, and when they speak, it doesn't match together, because my brain is not, I was still younger, so I didn't have enough time to be propagandized like them, but I feel like my intelligence is being humiliated when they're speaking when I was young. So I was like, no, I'm not going along with this. I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to say what I'm convinced in. And another example, just 3 years ago, during the Corona times, who are the people that you ask if you need to take who would say, yes, of course, it's safe and effective, go take 5. They're the doctors, right? My doctor friends, they like, I called them, like, I was suspicious. I don't know what's happening. I need, like, who do you want to ask during such times? A doctor, right? And then you call them and they give you the most sure, confident answer ever, and you get more suspicious. It's like, how do you know? Do you have the data? Show me. Do you have a study in your hand? No, but in the past, nothing happened with the other ones. Why would we? No, this is a different one. Please give me a concrete answer. Give me an answer. You don't have an answer, say, I don't know. But don't recommend something to me that you don't know the answer. But they were very, very confident. And now you see in 2024 that all these studies.
Exactly. That was also something that was weaponized, but let's say kidnapped by the whoever, the trust on something that we understand as safe. And, if you get Brazil, for example, if you get the data, we used to have a very good injection creation. It's hard to find a word that YouTube's not going to take me down. We used to have very good development on that area, and all the data that we had for the last 50 years of programs are amazing. The program in Brazil, it's very good concerning all measles and all those usual diseases. So we trust that,
of course.
And now they had kidnapped the trust that we had on that.
Yes.
And how is going to people trust on anything from now on?
That's a very, very good question.
That's very dangerous.
Yeah,
of course, most of people will still believe the narrative, but when the truth starts to come out, maybe you're going to destroy the truth on the entire process. I'm, what I mean? I'm not talking about one product. I'm talking about the process.
Yeah.
And that's extremely dangerous. That's extremely dangerous.
I lost my confidence, of course, because just like they can hijack politics, journalism, they are trying to hijack medicine now. And once you lose the autonomy on your body, you're done. you're finished, right?
Yeah.
And I lost my complete confidence when my uncle died here in Hamburg after Corona, because the usual procedure that they were applying on everyone, it proved to be inefficient. And 8 out of 10 people died when they were on ventilators. So I don't understand why every time somebody has a difficulty in breathing, they put them on a ventilator, and especially when you have a private insurance. So they have to like extract more money from you and put you more into difficult procedures, medical. Like I was in the hospital and I just asked the doctor, like, like there are alternative medicines. I don't want to mention them now so that your YouTube channel would not be banned. It's like there is this and that and this and that. Why would you put him on a ventilator? And they look at you like you are a stupid person, And I'm not that. I have studied so many examples that coming from South Africa, from India, from Latin American countries, that this medicine proven to be efficient against the disease, right? And against the breathing problems and against the spread of the virus, etc., etc. But they completely ruled out that, because what they had is a copy-paste of a procedure comes from the WHO and they have to follow it. The doctors are not innovative in their how would they treat someone. They have the protocol and they apply the protocol. They're executioners. That's why the doctors in Syria, I would trust my life for a doctor in Syria. Give him my, if I'm dying, God forbidden, I would trust myself to a Syrian doctor in Syria and not a doctor here in Germany. Because in Syria, there is still humanity and they are innovative. They are the ones, they want to cure the problem and find what is wrong with you instead of selling you just medicine and extract money from you because you are, you have an insurance that they can extract tens of thousands from you if they put you on a ventilator, if they put you here or that. And this is becoming a mafia business. And I don't trust it. I don't trust it anymore.
Yeah, in Brazil, we had a very good medical revolution at some point, pharmaceutical revolution at some point, that Brazil simply opened, what's it called? The copyright. Copyrights of especially HIV medicines, and starts to produce, and also started to produce, that opened the door to starting of producing all kinds of generical medicines. So we could get out from, the usual suspects, BASF, that one from the injection that we can also not mention the name here. It was good for some time. Now, today, I ask myself, we have 2 great institutes of developing this type of procedures. Why don't we have yet a Brazilian, medicine?
Yeah, because they hijacked the patents as well. So during the Corona times, for example, when Bill Gates was asked, why don't you share the patents with the people in South Africa or in other Asian countries to produce it? And he said they might not produce it as the same quality. For them, it's a business. And if they are funding the WHO, and the WHO says this is the protocol, then everybody follows. In Syria, unfortunately, I don't know if they fell for it or they're complicit with it, but they were stupid to follow. And nowadays, everything becomes suspicious. And I'm not saying that this is the case, but increasing number of younger people dying. And every time I log into my Facebook account and I see somebody from my friend list has died and he's in my age. What happened? Like, why do these people are dying? It's not like every day somebody dies or 10 people die, but I haven't seen this before, this phenomenon, right? And he had a heart attack. Like, why is it happening now? And when you speak about it, you say, you're crazy, you're a conspiracy theorist, you're this and that. So I let everybody decide for himself. I am very, very suspicious, and I'm happy that I'm very suspicious. And I have a formula, and I have something that I follow. Every time I see the politicians agree on one thing, the media agrees with the politicians, there is something suspicious.
That's a problem. Yeah, I've seen. I don't know if you've seen this story about the lower percentage of injections in the United States were on the poorer communities.
Yes,
the black communities especially, where they were saying just like, if the government is doing this shouldn't be good for us.
Yeah, they're right. They're right, in my opinion. And this was, in my opinion, was the biggest hoax that we lived after 9/11.
That was the biggest experience.
It was a big psychological experience on the people, and many people fell for it. And that's why I see that the future is not really bright, because if they can manipulate the people like this and the people become emotional and act upon their emotions and fears, then you can rest assured that somebody comes and tells you the people who didn't take the chuk-chuk, they have to be sent to the chambers, right? Like people were attacking each other, like you see in the public transport. If you don't wear a mask, everybody is now a police. It's like it's as if you're like a walking disease. Everybody's staring at you, and they want to get you out from the public transport, right? Yeah, this is mass psychosis. What happened during that times, and they sent lots of people to desperation and also economic misery. What they did, they robbed the people, and the people didn't know what happened, and they supported the politicians.
Exactly. Kev, we have reached 4 o'clock. Can you go for another 15 minutes or
10 more minutes, because I have my live streaming.
Okay, perfect. So I would just like, it's not too much time, but I would like to understand something quickly about Armenia. And so first of all, some time ago, the Kardashians started to push the genocide, the Armenian genocide. I would like to understand what was the genocide.
The Armenian genocide. So the genocide is, we say that we set the date at 1915 that the Ottomans committed the genocide, but it started 30 years before that. And the main reason for that was there were different reasons. Armenians were occupied by the Ottomans, and the Armenians were not Turkic people, and they were not Kurdish people, and they were not Muslim people. They were Christian people, and they were Orthodox people, and they had closer affiliation and affinity and ties to the Russian Empire back then, right? So before the World War I started and everybody was choosing alliances, of course, the Armenians had more close connection to the Russians than to the Ottoman people. They were second-class citizens under the Ottoman Empire. So the Turks know that, and because the Armenians were mostly in Eastern Anatolia, so they had a brilliant idea. So let's deport all these Armenians from Eastern Anatolia, because if a World War I erupts between us and between the Russian Empire, the Armenians, they speculated that could collaborate with the Russians against the Ottoman Empire. So they forcefully deported, like the Israelis are doing to the Palestinians now in Gaza, forced them from the north to the south, basically ethnically cleansed them. They ethnically cleansed 1.5 million. There were 2 million Armenians living in Eastern Anatolia, and 1.5 million people during these deportations perished in an organized manner. This was not like people died from starvation or there was not enough food or medicine. No, they were hunted. They were taken to the deserts of Syria in Deir ez-Zor, in that warm weather, and without any basic like the water and food for you to survive, right? And hundreds of thousands of people perished like that, and there were Kurdish militias hunting them again on the path to Syria. So of 2 million Armenians, 500,000 Armenians stayed alive during that time. 120,000 of them arrived to Syria in Aleppo, then went to Beirut, Lebanon, Jordan, and the rest of the world. They traveled all around the world. And my parents were one of the people who were living in, nowadays it's called Kilis, it's near Gaziantep. So it was easier for them to flee to northern Syria, the current northern Syria, to Aleppo. And the people in Syria, because they had their grievances again against the Ottoman Empire, they were also under Turkish occupation. And they didn't take part in the genocide. They protected the Armenians. And many Muslim people, many Arab people, many different communities in Syria protected the Armenians, took them into schools and centers to take care of them. And when I was studying in Damascus, I met with people from all around Syria, and I don't know if this is funny or not, but I used to meet with people from Deir ez-Zor, which is in eastern Syria, where the Turks massacred the Armenians in the deserts. And those are Muslim Arab people. And they used to tell me, hey, Kevork, are you Armenian? I say, yes. They say, my grandmother is Armenian. Or was Armenian. Or they say, the mother of my father was Armenian. I was like, how is that even possible? You guys, aren't you Muslims? He said, yeah, but when your grandmother came to Syria, she was 4 or 5 years old, or 6 years old, or 10 years old, and we embraced her and we protected her. So she became part of the family, and then there was an intermarriage, and she became part of the family. You know, and yeah, so this is the Armenian genocide. 1.5 million Armenians were completely massacred. And nowadays, we see another attempt against the Armenians by Azerbaijan and by Turkey. They ethnically cleanse nowadays 120,000 Armenians from Nagorno-Karabakh, where the Armenians' beginning was from Nagorno-Karabakh. This is the history of Armenia started. And they were kicked out. And of course, I don't blame Azerbaijan and Turkey. I blame the Armenian government. Because what do you expect from your enemy? But I expect from my government to protect me and not to collaborate with the enemy. So the color revolution that happened in Yerevan in 2018 brought a collaborative government. And this collaborative government are fifth columns, and they are the Sorosists. And what they did, basically, they intentionally lost the war in 2020, lost the war, and they sold the illusion to the people that we are going to win this war. And they even didn't use their deterrent weapons against Azerbaijan, something that is really striking, that they have the most sophisticated versions of the Russian Scud missiles that they never used. And when Pashinyan was asked, he said, we fired one of them, but the warhead exploded only 10% of its capacity. He thinks we are clowns. He thinks that a missile can only explode 10% of its capacity. The missile either explodes or doesn't explode. There is no 10% of its capacity.
It's 50-50.
Yeah.
As we say, it's 50-50.
Yeah, these people are collaborators, and Armenia is occupied nowadays by these collaborators. And people now ask me, why don't you speak about Armenia? And I spoke a lot about Armenia. Since 2018, I've been speaking regularly about Armenia. But when you get ridiculed, and when you get called conspiracy theorists, and when this is repeated, 2018, you warn them that this is a collaborative government. 2 years later, you lose most of the Nagorno-Karabakh. And you say, look, you will lose the rest of Nagorno-Karabakh if you don't change the government. And they go and re-elect Pashinyan again. Right? So they lose the entire Nagorno-Karabakh. And I say, guys, when we lose the entire Nagorno-Karabakh, you know what's going to happen? Armenia is going to be exposed. The buffer zone is gone between Armenia and Azerbaijan. And now the Azeris will come and they will claim Sunik, the southern part of Armenia, as theirs. And they're like, you're just a paranoid. We want to make peace in the region. I say, okay, make peace. And now Azeris are deploying their forces around surrounding Armenia, and they want territories from inside Armenia as we speak today. And everything I said, and I'm not like trying to say, I told you so, you know, but it's so clear.
But I told you so.
Yeah, but it's so clear. It doesn't need a genius to understand these things. You just need to understand the history You put the geography in front of you because you need to understand the geopolitics, right? And when you check in front of you, you understand what's going to happen. It doesn't take a genius. I don't know. There are patterns that repeat, you know? And Armenia is an existential threat nowadays by Azerbaijan. And when the Russian... I think she was the executive chief of Russia Today, Simonian, she's Armenian. She said in 5 years, Armenia will not exist. I don't think it's an exaggeration. If the Armenians continue like this, their nation will become Turkey and their nation will become Azerbaijan. They will be swallowed completely. And when I say they have to blame themselves, some of them say, shame on you, you're a traitor because you're blaming us instead of blaming. No. You have to take responsibility for your actions. And nowadays, what the Armenians did to their country is unforgivable. Pashinyan is a collaborative. You have to take him out of power or you lose your nation. And if you don't do that and you lose your nation, then who is going to be blamed for that, right? Not the Turks, not the Azeris. This is their historic mission to clean this area because Armenia is the only country that disrupts the Neo-Ottoman Turkic tribes to be interconnected between each other. Turkey, Azerbaijan, and then you have the Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, till the Crimea, for example. And Erdogan has a big project in his mind, you know, and but the Armenians, instead of sticking more with the Russians so that the Russians stay in the country, so that they get protection from the Russians, they antagonized Russia, and the Russians said, we don't help the people who betray us. They don't. The Russians are different. People need to understand the Russians expect loyalty.
I guess everybody expects loyalty, right?
But Russian politics is traditional, you know, it's like a traditional masculine policy, you know, it's like they come to fight for you like they did in Syria because Assad was showed loyalty. It's not the loyalty with the master, the loyalty of a friendship. Because when the Qataris came and proposed to Syria and said, Assad, well, let's extend these gas pipelines through Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Syria, Turkey, and Turkey distributes it to Europe. The main reason for that was Russia, because the Americans told to the Qataris, let's do this project so that the Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2 is destroyed without destroying it, right? And Assad said no. So he was loyal to his friend. And when he was in trouble, the Russians came to protect him. But now the Armenians expect for Russians to come and fight for them, unfortunately, while they are stabbing the Russians in the back since 2018. In 2016, just 2 years before Pashinyan came to power, Azeris tried to capture Nagorno-Karabakh again. And they conducted a major offensive on Nagorno-Karabakh, and they failed miserably. Why? How many years between 2016 and 2020 do you think that one country can become like a completely different army in 4 years? No. They fought against the Armenians, and the Armenians used their deterrence weapons, and they were ready to fight, and they had allies. And the allies are, first, you have a strategic ally, Russia, who can stop the fight diplomatically and put an end to it. And also you have good relationship with the European countries and the Americans. I'm not against having good relationship with them, but distribute your relationship. Don't make yourself a pawn. Armenia nowadays is turning itself into a NATO pawn. And what happened to Ukraine is going to happen to you. This is not a threat. This is just history. This is just facts. And this is just logic. So take it or leave it. You are in the Southern Caucasus. You're not in Canada or in the United States to become a NATO country. You're in the Southern Caucasus. So you either play with the calculations and with the equations carefully, and you stay in good terms with Russia, or the Russians are not going to defend you, and that's what's going to happen. If the Armenians think that the Americans will come or the French will come to protect them, they are delusional. They are delusional, and they will lose their country if they don't wake up.
Exactly. Kevork, it's been a pleasure. It's been a fantastic show. It's been too short. I need you back.
As we say in Arabic, inshallah, soon again. And I would be pleased to come to your show. Let's find another topic and we speak about it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Guys, remember to follow Kevork in all his social. The links are on the description. His site is also on the description. By the way, I think you have to check your SSL security.
I know.
For the site. It's not virus, so if you get a Chrome to tell you, well, you just forgot to update the
yes, that's true. Soon.
Sorry. Kevork, thank you very much.
Thank you, Marcelo.
See you next time. And see you all next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.